Story 1. The Mirror at the End of the Hall. Subscribe. Korea's darkness has no end. She moved into the apartment in late autumn. 7th floor. Long hallway. One mirror at the far end. The building manager said it had always been there. Nobody remembered who put it up. On her third night, she walked past it at 2 a.m. on her way to the kitchen. She stopped. Something felt wrong. She turned back to look. Her reflection turned back too, but not at the same time. She stood very still and stared. The reflection stared back. She lifted her right hand slowly. The reflection lifted its hand, but there was a delay. Half a second, maybe less. She told herself it was the light. Old mirrors did strange things at night. She went to the kitchen, drank her water, and did not look at the mirror on the way back. She looked up the building's history the next morning. Nothing unusual. 6 floors of ordinary tenants. The 7th floor had been vacant for 8 months before she moved in. The previous tenant, a woman in her 30s, had left without notice. Left everything. The landlord had kept the deposit and moved on. She called the landlord that evening and asked about the mirror. He paused before answering. "I don't know where it came from," he said. "It was there when I bought the unit. Just leave. It doesn't hurt anyone." She started timing it. Every night she stood in front of the mirror with her phone and counted. She raised her hand. 1, 2. The reflection raised its hand. She turned her head. 1, 2. The reflection turned its head. Always exactly half a second behind. Always. She filmed it 3 nights in a row and watched the footage back in daylight. The delay was real. It was not her imagination. Half a second, every time, without exception. On the 14th night, she stood in front of the mirror and did not move. She waited. 1 minute, 2 minutes, 5 minutes. She stood completely still. The reflection stood completely still. Then, at the 6-minute mark, the reflection blinked. She had not blinked. She was certain of it. She pressed her fingers to her eyes and felt them. Dry, open. She had not blinked. The reflection had blinked on its own. She called a friend and described what was happening. The friend laughed and said she was tired. She called her mother and described it again. Her mother told her to cover the mirror with a cloth. She bought a dark cloth from the market and pinned it over the glass. That night she slept with the lights on. In the morning, the cloth was on the floor. She pinned it up again. The next morning, it was on the floor again. On the 3rd morning, she stopped pinning it up. She found the previous tenant through a mutual contact. The woman answered the phone on the 2nd ring. When she heard the address, she went silent for a long moment. Then she said, "How far behind is it now?" She said, "Half a second." The woman on the phone exhaled. When I left, she said, it was 2 seconds ahead. She hung up. The line went dead. She stood in the hallway looking at the mirror. Her reflection looked back. She had not moved, but the reflection was already smiling. Story 2. The Sound Behind You on the Mountain Path. Subscribe. Korea's darkness has no end. She took the mountain trail alone because it was faster. 40 minutes through the forest instead of an hour around the road. She had done it 100 times. She knew every turn. She started at dusk. 15 minutes in, she heard it. Footsteps. Behind her, on the path. She stopped. The footsteps stopped. She started walking again. The footsteps started again. She turned around. The path behind her was empty. Dark trees on both sides. The trail cutting straight back through them. Nothing moving. She stood for a full minute and listened. Silence. She turned back toward the mountain and kept walking. 10 steps later, the footsteps came back. Same pace as hers. Same rhythm. She stopped again. They stopped again. Exactly when she did. Not a half beat after. Not a half beat before. Exactly when she did. She pulled out her phone and called a friend. The friend picked up on the 1st ring. She described the footsteps in a low voice. The friend told her to shine her flashlight behind her. She did. Nothing. Just the empty path and the trees closing in on either side. The friend told her to walk faster. She walked faster. The footsteps walked faster. She ran. The footsteps ran. She stopped dead. The footsteps stopped dead. Still perfectly in time. Still perfectly matched. The friend on the phone had gone quiet. She remembered hearing about this trail years ago. A woman who disappeared. They found her shoes at the midpoint, neatly placed side by side at the edge of the path. Nothing else. No signs of struggle. Just the shoes. The search team had found footprints in the mud leading up to the shoes, and then nothing. As if whoever was walking had simply stopped existing. She had thought it was a strange story. She had kept taking the trail anyway. 100 times. She knew every turn. She forced herself to keep walking. Do not stop. Do not run. Keep a steady pace and get to the end of the trail. She counted her steps. 1, 2, 3, 4. The footsteps counted behind her. 1, 2, 3, 4. She kept her eyes on the path ahead and did not look back. The trees were thicker here. The light almost completely gone. She switched on her flashlight and aimed it at the trail ahead. The beam cut forward through the dark. 20 meters, 10 meters, 5 meters. She heard breathing, not from behind her, from beside her, just outside the edge of the flashlight beam. She swung the light to the right. Nothing. She swung it to the left. Nothing. She stood completely still and listened. The breathing had stopped. The footsteps had stopped. The entire forest had gone silent. No wind, no insects, no sound at all. Just her own heartbeat loud in her ears. She ran. She stopped counting. She stopped thinking. She just ran toward the end of the trail where the street lights started and the road opened up, and there were other people and cars and sound. She could see it now. The break in the trees, the pale orange glow of the lights ahead. 30 meters, 20 meters, 10. She came out of the forest at full speed and stopped on the road, gasping, hands on her knees. She turned and looked back at the trailhead, the dark entrance between the trees. Nothing came out after her. She waited. Nothing. She straightened up and turned to walk toward the bus stop and heard it. Footsteps ahead of her on the road. The same pace, the same rhythm. She looked up. The road was empty. The streetlights stretched ahead in a long, pale line. Nothing moved, but the footsteps kept walking, getting further away, moving ahead of her into the lit street as if something had come out of the forest before she did, as if it had been waiting at the end of the trail the entire time, as if it had always known where she was going. She stood under the streetlight and did not move for a long time. Behind her, deep in the forest, something placed her shoes neatly side by side at the edge of the path.